Good morning and welcome back to our third Anchored in the Word morning reflection. And as we work our way through this concept of the consequences of Christless religion, today we're going to look at the preoccupation of those who in fact have a religious system that is built on self and self-righteousness rather than Christ and his righteousness. And so let's dig into that text again this morning. Again, that's Luke chapter 20, and we'll pick up in verse 41. It says, "And he said unto them, How say they that Christ is David's son? David himself also saith in the book of the Psalms, The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou on my right hand until I make thine enemies thy footstool. David therefore calleth him Lord. How is he then his son? Then in the audience of all the people he said unto the disciples, Beware of the scribes, which desire to walk with long robes, and love greetings in the marketplace, and the highest seats in the synagogue, and the chief rooms of the feasts, which devour widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers. The same shall receive greater damnation." This morning, as we look at the text in front of us, we're going to notice the things that these people were preoccupied. And these preoccupations, in fact, they were very shallow. They were all about self, and they were all about externals as opposed to true righteousness. And so as we work our way through the text, we notice in verses 45 through 47 what Jesus says. He says, "Beware of the scribes. They desire to walk in long robes. They love greetings in the markets. They love the highest seats in the synagogues, the chief rooms at feasts. They devour widows' houses, and for a show make long prayers." There are 7 things that he states in these verses that are preoccupations of these people, and they are all about promoting self. Desiring to walk in long robes indicates that they loved religious pomp. They like to walk into the marketplace and immediately everyone knows them. They know that these are religious people. They know what sect of Judaism they are a part of. They are impressed by their dress. The second thing he mentions is they love greetings in the marketplace. As these people would walk about and they'd greet one another, they would use terms and they would use language and greetings that promoted them and presented them as if they were hyper-spiritual people who loved God and that their religious practice was the center of everything. But what they were was putting on a show. How they dressed was putting on a show. The things that they said to one another was a putting on of a show. And they did this all because they wanted honor of men. They wanted honor in all religious context. They loved the highest seats of the synagogues, the places where people would say, oh, those are the truest followers of the Torah and the traditions of the elders. They didn't just love honor in the synagogue. They loved honor in other settings as well, in society. They loved the chief rooms at feasts. They wanted to be in the places where people were honoring their most honored individuals. And so these people used religion like people use politics to get ahead. They were all about promoting themselves. And at the heart of this was a heart that was greedy. They loved money. They loved power. They loved being seen of others. They loved the words of other people. They devoured widows' houses so they could prop up themselves and their own egos. They were hypocrites in their worship. He says, for a show, they make long prayers. The last thing I'll mention is that these were people who were very impressed by the things that they built. They loved their facilities, and they spoke often of the temple and its adornment. And they point out to these things. Why? Why does Jesus mention all of these things? It's because this is how the people lived. In fact, this is the central theme of Christ's Sermon on the Mount, where he calls people to follow him as disciples and to reject that broken system of the elders. For instance, think about what he says in verse 3 of Matthew 5. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit," not the proud in spirit, the poor in spirit. Theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Verse 11, "Blessed are you when men shall revile you and persecute you and say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake." Not the people who speak well of you and the people who honor you, But those who are despised for Christ's sake, these are the true blessed people. Or in verse 20, he says, except your righteousness exceeds the righteousness of the scribes and Pharisees, you will in no case enter the kingdom of heaven. Not equivalent to, but greater than. Their righteousness wasn't good enough. Or in chapter 6, verse 1, he says, take heed that you do not your alms before men to be seen of men. In other words, don't do your giving in front of others so that they're impressed by it. Verse 5, when you pray, do not be as the hypocrites who love to pray standing in the synagogues and the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Don't pray for others, pray to God in secret. And then in verse 7, when you pray, do not use vain repetition as the heathen do, who think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. What was the problem with these people? They had an affections problem, a heart problem. Words like desire and love and for a show all reveal that at the heart of the issue was an issue of the heart and the affections. They did not love God. In fact, they loved themselves. And this is what Christless religion looks like. It is dead. It is lifeless. It is without any power to transform people. It is something that is designed to promote self. It develops mechanisms to deaden the conscience and to make people feel as if God would accept them on the basis of what they do. The passions of dead religion are focused in the wrong direction. And so I asked this question this morning. Do you in any way see this practice either in the church or in your own life? May God help us to be a people who walk with Him, whose lives are built on the gospel alone. In fact, we do not see our religious practice as a way to promote self, but rather we see it as a way to humbly worship our great God who has redeemed us to Himself through the blood and righteousness of Christ. Have a blessed rest of your day, and Lord willing, we'll meet again tomorrow as we keep working our way through this text. Bye now.